Okay, so this is my first logbook. And the first thing I want to talk about, even though it's not included in those weeks that, you know, but it was included, it's kind of a part of the project, but we did it last project, is what I'm trying to say. I want to talk about the read through of the script, the first one we did, because that's when I decided like what roles I was intrigued by. And so the two roles that stood out to me the most were Clytemnestra and Electra. Electra, because I think it would be a huge challenge, and it's my last show, like I would like to challenge myself. But I don't like her as a person, which sort of made me a bit. Also, she's really young, and I'm one of the older people in the group, so I sort of feel like I'm inclined to go for an older role, which kind of makes sense. So I decided to look more at Clytemnestra, as even though I've auditioned for both. I really like Clytemnestra because she's got a lot of layers to her character that I saw that appealed to me more than with Electra. She's very sort of elegant in a really awful way, but she's got reasons for her to be so aggressive and for her to have, you know, murdered and everything. And so that's what I like about her. I think she's misunderstood, and I like the fact that there are so many layers to each and every one of her actions, and I feel like I can create a good profile for her, knowing like her background to what she's done and being able to understand why she said each word the way she has. So I feel like I have that connection already and I can connect with that easier. And I think she's a bit of fun to play, as much as she would challenge me as well to work on my naturalism. She's also really fun to play, I think in general, because I love the way she talks and the way she walks, and I just have this sort of connection with her. And like typecasting wise, I do think like it's me. I think looking at the whole group as a cast, I think if Clytemnestra was to go to anyone, it would either be me or Tamara, because we're similar in our age and the way that we act, for older sort of mothery roles, which makes sense because Tamara ended up getting Hypatia, which is really cool. But also when reading the script, I realised there's a lot of stuff that just repeats itself, so I'm really happy we went through and changed a lot of it. And I would talk more on that, but because this logbook is about a few weeks, I've picked out main points that I found that I should talk about. Because when we were writing the script, because of my ADHD, as much as I did contribute a little bit, I did still struggle to concentrate and help in that way. But you know, I contributed small amounts, but nothing like significant, do you know what I mean? So yeah, so my first target will be for audition day. So my target for this session is to deliver a good audition using the skills that I've learnt when we watched the RADA show. This is my target because it's my last show with college, and so I don't want to play a role that I'm not excited about. I will achieve this by learning my lines but no more. As the guy from RADA said, the key to his technique is to not over-prepare, let the words flow through you and let your body and emotions react naturally. This will help me later on because it's a new technique that can enhance my naturalistic acting and develop my skills to make me more employable as an actor. This will help me get a distinction in practical skills, as it shows I can use new techniques to develop my on-stage skills. So I learnt 2 monologues. I learnt one for Electra and one for Clytemnestra, right? I learn lines really fast, and then once I've learnt the lines, I then start planning blocking and all of that sort of stuff. But I decided this time that I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to learn my lines 2 weeks in advance like most people did and should, because I knew that then I'd overplan. And so I learnt it, it's going to sound really bad, but I learnt it the morning before, right? I took out a chunk of each of them. I took out what I think I could work with the most, and I learnt them, right? And then I didn't plan anything else. I sort of just went for it. And I went in there and stood in front of them and I went for it. I think I held myself back, definitely. I did like that technique. I loved experimenting with a new technique, especially in something that's pending. Like on an audition, it was very risky for me to do because it could have meant I could have ended up in the chorus or something, which I really wouldn't have wanted to do because I did the chorus in the last Greek show we did and I didn't enjoy it as much. So I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to go for this, but luckily I was the only person who was auditioning for Clytemnestra anyway, so you know, pretty good odds. But yeah, so it wasn't the best like monologue I've ever done, or monologues I've ever done, especially for Electra, because the emotional content is something I struggle with, and I think I overthought that too much. And so it wasn't the best that I've ever done, but it wasn't bad. And I'm not going to say that it's due to the technique that it was not where it should have been. I think it was due to my execution of the technique. And I think if I use that technique more in different scenarios throughout my whole career, then maybe I'll be able to develop it. I'm trying to do it now in the actual show when we're blocking and stuff. I'm trying to just let things happen. And it happened the other day when I got into my first scene with Clytemnestra, and I went for it, and it was really good. Even like Lydia shouted out like, "Yeah, Rose, kill it, it was great." And I'm like, oh my god, I've just let that come out, and just listen to the words. Like the guy from RADA was talking about actually listening to what's being said to your character from which character and the relationships behind it. And so I actually listened, and then that's how I delivered as if I really was, and it felt like I was genuinely embodying Clytemnestra. It felt like I was genuinely like inside of her body, like, you know. So it is a technique that needs development, but is a technique that I still want to use also, because I think it's fun. Because sorry, I spat. It's fun because you don't know what's going to happen, and that's really exciting, and that's one of the things I love. Like, I'm very passionate about theatre anyway, but it's really exciting when you're trying out new things and you try and develop a character in a different way than normal, because I think we do like what, 6 or 5 shows a year, you get really samey. I feel like I get really samey throughout the whole year, where I'm like, okay, learn my lines, block it, figure out what I'm saying, put the emotion behind it, then go out. And it's like the same like technique and the same routine every time I'm learning a line and developing a character. But I think it's really fun to start developing a new way of doing that, and just a more, what's the word? Just a more risky, I suppose, way of like going about that. So yeah, that was really fun, and I ended up getting the role that I wanted. I did like Electra, but also didn't want her that much, and I ended up with Clytemnestra, and so I'm really chuffed about that. Now I'm really happy, and I'm continuing, and I'm having a great day, great time. But yeah, so the next day that I think is important for me to talk about is the production schedule day, like where we talked about the production schedule and the production roles mostly. That's where my attention is drawn to, because yeah, it's important to know what I'm doing, right? So my target for today is to know what my production role is and start thinking about the best way to organize it alongside my other role. This is my target. Sorry, I got a lot of spelling errors here. This is my target because I don't want to overwork myself, because I won't be able to produce my work by the deadlines and to a high standard. I will achieve this by organising things on my website. This will help me with getting a distinction in planning and organisation, because it shows that I can be on top of my work and complete things to the highest standard. This will help me in the future because it shows I can organise myself, which is a really employable skill for an actor and a director. So yeah, obviously I want to be an actor / director, and so that helps with that. But basically we sat down, we talked about it, and like who got what. I ended up getting set, and then SFX props, and a little bit of hair and makeup as well, because there was just a couple of overlying things that I was like, actually I'm quite happy to do that. So yeah, there's bits and bobs that I need to do. At the minute I've got quite a good list. I'm going to try and get it up actually, because I always say like, oh, it's on my website, and then I don't know, I feel like it's not showing enough. And if I was good at editing, I would have been able to edit in like in a beautiful way. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so basically, here we go. I'm on set, and that's like my main jig. So this is a set choreography plan that I made. So it's got the cue the items, the people that need to take the items, and then the instruction. So I felt like that was the best way to organise that, because when we actually got into it, this was something I did later on, but it still applies. When we actually got into blocking and everything, we realised that set was just like all over the place and we were trying to organise it. So I posted that on the Everyone site for people to look at. No one's looked at it, but I feel happy that I've done it, and then I can say, actually, refer to that, then talk to me that you don't know about what you're doing, you know? Which I think it was a really good thing for me to do, because it meant that people were more organised, it meant that we knew where things were, and it meant that I knew in that set sort of thing, I have a set list, right? In like a really roundabout way, but it means that I can look through it and go, okay, we've got that piece of set, but we haven't got this piece, so I need to go and get that, or I need to go make that. So it helps me be on top of that. And then on my, in my evidence site, I have the designs for like what's happening in what scene, what piece of set is going where, so on and so forth. A lot of it at the minute is scene 1 because that's taken the most time. It's like half the script, and so that's all been in scene 1. But yeah, so that means that it's all organised on there, and so I can say, okay, I've had an idea for this scene, and I can go up to Lydia and show her a picture and be like, so this is, it's just easier that way than to say, well, what if we did this and this and this, and moving the actual set to look like that. If I can just show this picture and be like, do you want this? And then she can visualise it and go, yeah, no, you know, and we can work from there. And so I'm really happy with that. And for my SFX props, I know what I've got to make now and get, but obviously I haven't got around to it yet because I've only just figured it out. I've only just found out. We're still in the early process, even though it's like the 3rd or 4th week, you know. So I'm just working with someone who does SFX props for a theatre company in Liskeard. He works for Stats. He's a good friend of mine and he does loads of really cool stuff, and so I'm working with him to try and figure out like how I make these props, how I make certain things work. So that's really fun, and it means that I've got some primary research as well, which is really sick. And once we start putting an actual plan together and me and him can meet up safely because of COVID and we can start putting this stuff together, I'll be able to put it on my evidence site, provided he's not busy with work, because obviously everyone's going back to work now. But it might just be screenshots of our conversations put up on the site so that, you know, evidence. Yeah, so that's that. I feel like I'm coming along pretty well with set at the minute, but it's still taking a while. I had this idea for tabletops that move, so you could take the tabletop off to change the scene. So we've got one with the restaurant, which has got a flower and a candle on it, and then the drug one, which has got like druggy props and like Monster Energy cans and stuff like that on it to make it look a bit more like a drug den. So I'm working on that as well. But I feel like as Trinity isn't in as much, like she hasn't been coming in, she's been feeling really unwell, doing stuff with Ethan as well. I've sort of been doing a lot more props, which isn't my job. But I feel I'm the kind of person that when something isn't being done, I'll just do it myself. It doesn't matter if it's my job or not. I like things being done, and so I go and do them myself, which is something I need to sort of restrict myself from doing until I have the get-go from Dan, who's the stage manager. So yeah, I'm a little bit like, meh, but also like we need props and that's her job and she's not quite doing it, so I don't know. Anyway, so I think we've really talked about blocking, but I'll talk about my target for the first day that we started blocking. So my target for today is to share my creative ideas while blocking the beginning of the show. This is my target because I know it can be difficult to block an opening of a show because that's the first thing the audience sees. And I know that I can contribute good ideas and enhance other ideas. This will help me get a distinction in practical skills because it shows I have an in-depth understanding of the show and can produce creative ideas and contributions. This will help me in the future because it shows that I am on it and I'm passionate about what I do, and I am an employable actor who is ready to contribute but also enhance others. So, yeah, we started doing the opening of the show. I kind of like, we got there and we got everything like set up how we wanted it. Like I showed the pictures of my set ideas to Lydia and we sort of set some of them up, and it's been a bit of a slow process, if I'm honest, and I've been a bit undermotivated, which is kind of sad. So I don't know whether I've hit that target. I definitely did contribute creative ideas, such as like when Clytemnestra runs in and is crying, and like stuff like that, and sequences and how they should work, and more for like technique wise than blocking wise. So there's that, and I'm happy with that, but also I feel like I can contribute more. But I think what I've contributed to the most would be the scene with Electra and Chrysophimus, like recently, in the last like week or so, because there was a lot going on where it's just this really long conversation. This really, really long conversation that's really boring to watch. And so I was like, right, there needs to be something. So we have the chorus in the background, and I can't do anything with them yet. So I was trying to move Electra around, and Dan had a really good idea about when they're saying conflicting things, they're far apart, but when they're agreeing with each other, they come closer together. And so we worked with that, and I had them sort of walking parallel around the stage, because obviously it's in the round. Walking in parallel and just like working on looking at like where they're moving to and what the audience is doing. And then we had the idea of Clytemnestra coming in when she's mentioned by Electra, and like holding on to Chrysophimus's shoulders to show like her presence in that, and like that she's always overshadowing Chrysophimus. So that was a really good idea that I liked. So yeah, it's just bits and bobs really. And the thing is, I've always found it really difficult to talk in my logbooks about my ideas, because either I haven't contributed, which doesn't happen very often, or I've done the whole thing and there's been bits that sound so snobby and stuck up, not in like a oh no one else does any work kind of way, but in like a I'm sort of I obviously we know that I take a leadership role. And so I sort of sit on top and sort of say, okay, what if we did this, what if we did that, and people just do it. And then they'll contribute little bits into what I've said, and then it will go. So it tends to be sort of, I find that if I don't say anything, nothing really happens unless Lydia's there. But then if I say something, it can spark other ideas. And so that's how it happens. And then I forget what I've said, because it's just become this whole big blob of just me talking too much. Do you know what I mean? I contribute a lot. And that's why it's hard for me to be like, oh, I came up with this and this and this, because it would be a really, really long list. But definitely had a lot to say in Chrysophimus and Electra's scene. Not so much in the opening as I wanted to in my target, because I got like almost anxious to get on stage. I really, really, really wanted to get on stage, and we just kept talking about it. People kept talking and talking and talking, and I was like, can we just do a practical? So I was sat there like when you don't let a kid have a piece of candy. I was like, I need to act. I haven't acted in months. I want to get on stage. Can we stop this, please? I'm dying. You know, just an underdeprived actor. But yeah, so yeah. And then the last thing that I think I want to talk about is my line learning. So I had a plan to learn my lines all in the first week, and I did. Then I forgot them. Good going. And then I learnt them again, and so I've got most of it. I've got my long opening monologue. I've got my back and forth between me and Electra, me and Hypatia, and there's a couple there that won't stick, but I've got most of them. And then I've got my death. I've got that bit as well. But there's this one thing. It's my prayer to Apollo. I have gone over it so many times, like so many. I remember like the first chunk and the last bit, but then there's this little bit in the middle. It's not very big, but it's just a small bit I just cannot get to stick in my brain. And so I'm trying, and that's like my most current thing that I'm working on at the minute, is just learning that bloody line, because it's so annoying and I just can't do it. So yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. But yeah, so that's my first logbook. A lot has happened in those weeks, but I feel like those are my key points for me personally. I'm sure other people will say other things, but that was what I found most important to talk about. So yeah, fun. I feel like I'm developing as an actor as we go, and I'm sad that this is my last show. But hey ho.